Alright, it is July 29th, 2016, so it's been, I don't even know how long since the last video. And we actually started doing some work, so I'll show you what we've done. We started on the vapor barrier down here, so I'll show you that. So, I mean, I know how to frame a basement and stuff, but I don't know, the one thing I don't know anything about is vapor barriers. And we live in Pennsylvania, and the climate here it gets very cold in the winter, it gets very hot in the summer. It was 105 the other day, and it gets into the negatives in the winter, so we have pretty much all ranges of temperatures. The nice thing about our basement is it's completely underground. It's not a walkout basement or anything. The whole entire thing is underground, same level of dirt and all that. So it's pretty nicely insulated down here. When I was down here the other day when it was over 100 outside, it was actually kind of chilly down here. In the winter, it's not cold down here. It actually feels pretty nice. So the dirt acts as a pretty natural insulation. So as far as humidity and temperature and stuff like that, it's actually really nice down here. So it's good conditions for finishing a basement. The only problem is where our house is located in the neighborhood. That's the front of the house, and there's a road there, goes down a little bit, and there's a creek. If you look at this side, we have a flat backyard. There's a 6-foot retaining wall, a 45-degree slope, a house, and then a huge hill on top of that. So the neighborhood just goes way up. So all of the water, is flowing down that hill towards the creek. So there is a lot of water coming past this basement. We have a sump pump, and we have kind of a mess over here. I'll show you a tour in a second again, because we did change the plans. In the corner over there, there's a sump pump. So if you don't know how that works, 4 foot or so pit in the ground, water flows into it. When there's water underground, that pipe pumps it up and it goes out the basement. It works great. The pump, when it rains a lot, actually runs for a couple days after it rains. Takes a while to pump all the water out of here. But we've never had the basement get wet except for one time where it was closer to when we moved in here. We had a heavy rain, and in the sump pump, and pretend this is the sump pump and this is the top of the floor and this is underground, they drill holes in it. There's a plastic thing with holes, and water flows in from underground, goes through the holes, it fills up this pit, and it pumps it up. Well, there was so much rain, the water couldn't come in fast enough, so it actually flooded the basement, and the water was coming up through the saw cuts here and then on the perimeter, I think. I don't know exactly where, but it was just coming up from the floor, and we got a couple inches of water in here. So what we did is we got a drill, added more holes to this. Like while it was raining, water was just flowing in faster, and the pump was able to keep up with it, so it was fine. Never had any water or any dampness down here since, and that was a couple years ago. So we're not really worried about the water, but this is the most important part of the project, so we want to make sure it's done. It's done right. So what we were going to do when we were looking up how to do a vapor barrier, a lot of websites say to hang plastic. So hang a big sheet of plastic like that from there to the floor, and then just frame a wall in front of it. And you could put regular insulation in the wall. That way, if there's any moisture coming through the wall, it doesn't ever hit your drywall or your insulation or anything. The problem with that we didn't realize is if water does come through, or even any moisture back there, not even just like liquid, if there's just any kind of humidity, it'll condensate on the back side of the plastic, and it'll run down and collect at the bottom and create mold. So that's actually why you don't want to do that. So I actually hung up some plastic, and we bought a whole bunch of it. We actually returned it, except for that one sheet when we realized that. So what we're doing now is a different system, if you've ever heard of dry lock. So this is a container of it. We bought 3 5-gallon buckets and we used about 13 of the 15 gallons. So it's dry lock, masonry waterproofing. So it's just like paint basically. It's kind of like a thick paint, and we used rollers to put it on. We did 2 coats. So I'll show you up close. Well, I'll show you what it looked like before if you're not really familiar with poured concrete. Sorry, the lighting's bad, but you can see there's some holes in it just from air bubbles and stuff when they pour it. See, there's some divots and stuff like that. Some spots are worse than others. So, like I said, the stuff is pretty thick. So we went over it with the roller. And there were still some holes. Like, there's still some right now. Like up there's a couple. And then we went, when it dried, did another coat over it. Went real thick and tried to, sorry, it's hard to focus the camera down here. Went over it again and covered as much of it as possible. So a couple holes left, like some bigger ones. Obviously, like this concrete is probably 10 to 12 inches thick. Actually, it's probably less. You can tell how thick it is here. So probably 8 inches thick, or maybe 10 at most, if it varies. But obviously these holes don't go all the way through, they're just at the surface, but you still want to make sure it's sealed. So a couple holes up there. So we'll touch it up with caulking. But the other thing we did is you want to caulk the perimeter and then any holes in the ground, so that if any water, if we do have an issue like we did have where a pump fails, water doesn't come up through any cracks. The base should be sealed too. Well, our perimeter was already sealed. It's painted over now so you can't see it. But these saw cuts, expansion joints, had a silicone in them. So we poured that out and put the stuff we bought is called Sikaflex. And we used like 10 tubes of caulking. There's a line here, a perpendicular one there, and then one there. So we filled those in. And we're gonna be buying a backup pump. They have pumps that are actually powered by water pressure and not electricity. So if our pump ever fails, that can power the pump. So we're going to be doing that. So that's pretty much the vapor barrier. Now what they say to do after this is put a foam board insulation onto this, glue it, and I guess that's supposed to be, you don't really do it for any kind of R value, but you do that so that if this does fail and any water does get through, that it doesn't ever reach the fiberglass insulation. And we were trying to talk about what to do with the ceiling. So these ceilings are like 9 feet high. They're really tall, so we don't have to worry about height too much. So we're going to frame this down about 12 inches to the bottom of this beam, and that'll be the new ceiling height from here all the way over. We're not going to bring it back up here because you'd have to frame it down a little bit anyway because this gas line. So this will all be, the same height all the way over. It'll still be nice and tall. It'll still be like 8 feet. Same thing for this whole part of the basement. That'll all be just framed over. And then this will be the nice high part. Above where the bar is, we're gonna frame a soffit down about 6 more inches from that. So it's gonna come down over here, turn, go like this, and then into the wall. So when you're looking at it from this side, it'll come down like 18 inches, soffit for like 12 inches wide, and then it'll come back up 6, and then over, because the height behind the bar, like behind the soffit, is all going to be the same ceiling height. So behind the bar, we're going to keep this low, and then in front of the bar, we're going to bring it up high. It's kind of confusing, but it'll look good when we're done. So we bought some wood. We got enough pressure treated boards just to do the base plates. So that's actually a little bit extra than what we need just for the bottoms. The rest of it's going to be framed with normal 2x4s. Unfortunately, we have to buy 2x4x10s instead of 2x4x8s because the way the ceiling height is. So we bought some tools I'll show you real quick. Some cheap saw horses there. Got a nice new saw, that's this thing. Nice chop saw, which will be good for when we do trim and special cuts like that. So it goes like 45, can turn, tilts, all that kind of fancy stuff. A lot of junk here we need to get rid of. We already took a ton of stuff upstairs, got rid of it. This thing needs to go, and these are other parts for it. We're going to put that out the next trash day. This weightlifting thing is going. A lot of junk here that we're going to get rid of. But once we frame these walls in, that'll allow us to build shelving on the other side, and we can reorganize and put all this stuff away. So that's why it looks like a mess right now. But like I said, that's where that wall is going to be, so that's all going to be behind there. Nice new saw. We're going to get a new screw gun. We were going to buy an air compressor and a nailer, but we figured a lot of the work that we're doing is ceiling work, and there's going to be a lot of weird like toe nailing and stuff like that. So we figured it'd be easier just to do screws for the whole thing. And then this is the tool for attaching the wood to the concrete. So I'll show that in action once we get to it. But we're on the next step now, which is the foam board. So we bought like 30 some sheets. I think it's a 1/2 inch, and basically it's just styrofoam and then a layer of this paper on it, and it's going to act as our vapor barrier. And so basically, if any moisture were to get through this, which, I mean, it's been raining a lot, it's very humid out there, nothing's been coming through, but if anything does, this will be what's in between the wood wall, you know, with that insulation and the water. So this will be like a last step if any water does get through. Hopefully it'll stop at this point. So started installing it. There are 4x8 sheets, and the ceiling's a little higher than 8 feet. So what I've been doing is putting the small piece on the bottom. Reason for that is water travels down, so I want, if you have a choice to put the seam at the top or the bottom, I'd rather put the seam at the bottom because water's going to be up there first. So I attach these and then put a full sheet on top of that. So basically, to glue it, we bought we're using liquid nails, which does not stick as well as I thought. I mean, it says it attaches to like all surfaces or whatever, but it's not that great with styrofoam to this stuff. So basically, I put these up and then leaned a chair against it. Just the edges are okay, but the middle's where you want to worry about, because the weight of this thing is tending it, you know, makes it want to like bow. So in the middle is where it kind of comes out, but it's okay. It doesn't need to stick amazingly well because there's going to be a wood wall framed right up against it. So alright, so this is the solution I came up with to hold these sheets on while they dry, because this the glue just does not want to stick to the wall or to these things, so they just peel off. So with the corners, I just taped them, holds them nice and tightly together. This one stuck. I mean, last night's when I glued these on, these are stuck okay. When you touch the middle, this is the first one I glued, it doesn't have as much glue. You can see how much it moves. But this one's okay. It's mainly the middle that likes to sag, but it's not horrible. Just don't want to have a lot of air in the middle. But what I did is I just stood up these 2x4x8s because the 10-foot ones are too tall, and then they're leaning as hard as they can against that, and then this 10-footer is pushing its weight on it and at least holding the top, and then the bottom, just from the friction on the concrete, is holding that so it doesn't slide out. So you can see it's working pretty good. So that was last night, so it should be dry enough now, I think, that I can take it off. I hope so. It says it dries in 20 minutes, but I don't know with the way this is. So same deal with these ones. Cut around the window. We'll have to clean that up a little bit, but yeah, it's working. So just gonna keep on going down the wall. Alright, so I finally have all the boards put up. Did this part this morning, let it dry for half the day. Just did that part. Came up with a pretty good system with getting those to stay on the wall. I just do one of the 8-foot boards right on the middle of the seam that holds both boards. Both pieces of insulation, and then one 10-foot to support that, and then I do one in the middle just to kind of press on the top up here. So that's drying. This wall, like I said, is done. Now I'm up on the ladder doing the tape, because then this is the next part. It seals all the joints. Now this tape is a pain. It's made for this stuff, and it sticks really well. And it's got a paper backing on it. I won't really focus close, but you essentially have to rip off the back of it, and then when you do that, it wants to roll. So it's really hard to work with, but we're getting there. I already taped all those seams, did the corners, the outside corners at least. I don't know. The inside corners are a pain, so I'll save those for later. And then gotta go along the bottom, but we're getting there. Alright, so the spaceship is complete. Got all of the insulation put up, and I taped all of it too. Got a nasty paper cut while doing that, but ended it right here because this is the line for the wall, and this will be storage, so don't really need any there. Have some extra sheets to take back, but it looks really nice after it's taped. Got that one seam along the bottom, nice and smooth. Glue dried okay. In the middle it's still a little bit flexible. The edges are good though. If you see how I propped the boards, they held it up pretty nicely. So the next step, so what we're doing then with the walls is just you don't want any airspace behind this, so to hold it really tight against the wall, we're going to be framing the wall, like the wood wall, so it's hard right up against this. My next step here is to start doing the walls. Well, I have to sweep the floor. I have all these things from the tape. And all this stuff needs to be moved. We're getting rid of those wood panels, that big wood thing. And then once we get these walls framed up and get like that wall in place and everything, we're going to build shelving on the other side of it, and a lot of this stuff will go into storage. So I need to move all this wood over to here. I need to move all this stuff over, frame the wall.